It's October 31st, 2025. Inside a high-security data center in South Dakota, a technician is performing routine maintenance. The room is climate-controlled, sterile, and filled with millions of dollars of blinking hardware. This is the digital lifeblood of an entire state government. Everything from public health records to DMV portals runs through these specific server racks. The technician reaches into a dense bundle of physical cables. He's following the labels, small thermal printed stickers wrapped around the plastic casing. He unplugs one wire to swap a component. Suddenly, the screens in the state capitol go blank. Emergency portals for thousands of citizens stop responding. A two-day IT outage begins. For the next 48 hours, South Dakota effectively ceases to exist online. Officials initially fear a sophisticated cyber attack. They look for signs of a breach, a foreign actor, or a coordinated strike on American utilities. After all, Alaska Airlines just recorded its third major IT failure in a single quarter. Amazon Web Services is struggling with a massive service gap in New York. But the forensic team in South Dakota finds something much more embarrassing. There was no malware. There was no hacker. State officials are forced to admit the truth. A physical maintenance error, a multi-million-dollar infrastructure, was paralyzed by a single technician trusting a set of mislabeled wires. Take a look at what happened. Here is how the digital state was defeated by a handheld label maker. The South Dakota Bureau of Information and Telecommunications, or BIT, is responsible for the state's entire digital footprint. It manages everything from tax filings to public safety networks across a sprawling rural geography. But on October 31st, the BIT isn't just fighting a local problem. They are operating in a climate of national utility instability. On October 22nd, an AWS outage impacts New York State residents, highlighting the reach of private sector cloud failures. 7 days later, Alaska Airlines is hit by its third IT failure in 3 months. The carrier's digital operations are paralyzed in the wake of a global Microsoft outage. For many, it feels like the digital lifeblood of the country is being systematically drained. This wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a broader collapse of American infrastructure. 2 months later, in Waterbury, Connecticut, residents would enter their 6-day outage without water. The municipal water department was forced to initiate emergency repairs after a total system collapse. By January, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors would blast PG&E. They called for a formal inquiry into a public utility system that failed thousands during a string of December outages. To the officials in Pierre, the 2-day IT outage feels like the next domino in a high-stakes sequence. They treat the server room hardware like a crime scene. They check the digital services status and review the cloud infrastructure failure logs. They are looking for a sophisticated digital signature or a backdoor left by an external actor. They expect to find a masterclass in cyber warfare hidden within the maintenance log. But the digital operations hardware doesn't tell a story of infiltration. The forensic team begins their sweep of the South Dakota data center. They aren't looking for dust. They're looking for a digital signature. They scan the traffic logs for a backdoor or a foreign IP address. They expect to find a sophisticated breach of the statewide digital infrastructure. But the server logs show something impossible. There was no unauthorized login. There was no spike in external traffic or malware deployment. Instead, the system recorded a physical maintenance error, a clean, manual termination of the connection at the exact moment the maintenance began. Investigators walk back to the physical server racks. They find the bundle of physical cables the technician had been working on. They look at the small, thermal printed stickers wrapped around the plastic casing. A label on a single wire identifies it as a secondary, non-critical backup. In reality, that wire was the primary uplink for the entire state government. The technician had followed the label, pulled the plug, and effectively deleted the state from the internet. The multi-million-dollar system had less organizational integrity than a basic filing cabinet. This wasn't a failure of high-level encryption or cloud security. It was a failure of a handheld label maker. South Dakota officials are forced to confirm the cause of the 2-day IT outage. It wasn't a hacker, it was mislabeled wires. South Dakota state officials are forced to go public. They confirm the 2-day IT outage was a physical maintenance error. There is a 48-hour hole in the state's digital history. Records of tax filings, health data, and DMV transactions simply stop. But South Dakota isn't the only place where the infrastructure is fraying. In San Francisco, the Board of Supervisors initiates a formal inquiry. They blast PG&E after a string of December outages left thousands in the dark. They want a full audit of the, quote, public utility system. In Waterbury, Connecticut, the 6-day outage of the water system leads to emergency repairs. Residents find that the digital operations hardware isn't the only thing that's been mislabeled or ignored. It's a systemic rot. In the Bureau of Information and Telecommunications, the digital services status finally turns green. But the impacted residents are still asking questions. How does a state-of-the-art network get brought to a standstill by a single wire? There is no high-level briefing on cyber warfare to provide cover, just the embarrassing reality of the maintenance. The total financial cost of the South Dakota outage remains one of the unknowns. No one wants to calculate the price of a 48-hour blackout. The government is back online, but the fragility of the system is now on the record. A multi-million-dollar digital skyscraper held together by thermal printed tape. The South Dakota Bureau of Information and Telecommunications is back to full capacity. The 2-day IT outage is now officially archived as a physical maintenance error. The specific technician who pulled the cable remains anonymous in state records. In Waterbury, Connecticut, the municipal water department is still carrying out emergency repairs. Residents there spent a full 6 days relying on bottled water and aging infrastructure. In San Francisco, the Board of Supervisors is moving forward with their formal inquiry. They are still waiting for a full audit of the public utility system from PG&E. In the South Dakota Data Center, new protocols now require double verification for every physical tag. But the statewide digital infrastructure is still just a labyrinth of copper and plastic. On the back of one high-security server rack, a single thermal printed sticker is starting to lift. The adhesive is drying out. The thin line between a functioning state and total digital paralysis is a 2-cent piece of tape, and it's starting to peel.